Okay, it's late and I've got some time on my hands, so I wanted to go through an LM386 circuit with you guys that I got online just by googling and looking at a picture. I'll share that in the description. So I have a parts list here of the circuit that I want to build, and essentially I have the board and the LED. I want a power LED for this thing because it is a 9 volt chip, so I want to be able to drop that voltage to an LED just so I can look inside the cavity of where this thing is going to be and make sure it's on. So what this is for is a prop, a Halloween prop of a Jason that makes the iconic sound that and then it does the machete chop, and then he has a machete that he holds in his hand. It's pretty cool. It's a really cool prop. It stands taller than me. I'm 6 foot. It stands about 1.5 inches, 2 inches taller than me. So the original speaker was a little too loud and was having some issues with crackling. So I took it apart and I made a little tiny circuit with a trim pot and a resistor to change the volume of the speaker. And I just put that directly in line from the driver to the speaker itself, and that worked great. And then I realized that the crackling was a broken wire inside the speaker, so I ended up getting a different speaker. And what my mom picked up online is a 4 ohm 10 watt speaker, and what we had in there was a 8 ohm 4 watt speaker. No, 8 ohm 8 watt speaker, I'm pretty sure. So this draws a little bit more, I'm assuming. I don't know very much about audio stuff, but I know once you get into the lower level signals, that you don't have as many problems with stuff catching on fire as you normally would with giant amps in the back of trunks and stuff like that. So I didn't think it was anything too critical. I put it in there, and then I noticed that my trim pot that I was using was starting to arc when I would adjust it, and the trim pot shortly died after that. So I'm going to need to make a robust circuit, and the LM386 can handle anywhere from 4 to 16 ohms, I believe. So it should be able to do this speaker just fine, taking the signal that I have out of the 4 ohm driver, or the 8 ohm driver. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've started to jot down the circuit here. So basically the circuit that I found online, I'll share in the description. It's got the chip, and it's got a positive and negative for the input. The positive for the input's going to a wiper on a 10K potentiometer. Those are on the way. It's going to be external, so I'm going to be able to finish the circuit and get the wires to the external potentiometer ready. That way I can just throw it in when it gets here. So I'll be able to pretty much finish the circuit tonight without testing it. So after the wiper, it goes to the input, and then the other side of that 10K potentiometer goes to ground. And then it's got looks like pin 4. See, this is pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, and 7. They're calling them. It's pin 4 goes directly to ground. Pin 7 goes to a 10 microfarad capacitor to ground. And it looks like 5 right out the middle here, going to a 220 microfarad. That is going to the speaker. Okay, and around the side here we have pin 8. That's going to another 10 microfarad. We have pin 1 on a 1. Let's see, that's actually a 1.2K. 1.2K resistor. And that's going straight to the other side of that capacitor. And then we have pin 6 going to our positive 9 volts. That's going down to a capacitor of 0.1 microfarad. That's jumping to ground. And let's see, on the outside here, before this 22 microfarad capacitor, we have a resistor of 10 ohm and a capacitor of 0.1 microfarad going to ground. And it looks like that's it. So overall, we've got the input going to a wiper on a 10K to ground. We have the negative going to ground. We have pin 4 going to ground. Pin 7, 10 microfarad to ground. Pin 5 going to a 220 microfarad to the input of the speaker. And then behind that 220 microfarad, we're going to a 10 ohm into a 0.1 microfarad, then to ground. Pin 8, we're going to a 10 microfarad, wrapping around to a 1.2K resistor, going right back into pin 1, it looks like. Pin 6, we're going up straight to positive and 9 volts. The other side of that's going through a capacitor, 0.1 microfarad to ground. And that should be it. I should be able to spin the wiper here and change the amount of volume that I get out of this speaker. And this is it should put out more sound at its highest setting. So I'm kind of worried about, you know, it drawing too much out of the 8 ohm driver, but we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and build this thing up. Like I said, I don't have the wiper potentiometer. That's going to be external off the board anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish the circuit as it is, and when it comes in the mail, I'll go ahead and throw it together and test it. So with that, I want to kind of mock up a couple of these boards on paper. So I want to do kind of a top view and then a flipped bottom view, something like that. So I happen to know there's 28 holes here. It has the whole alphabet plus 2 letters. So I'm going to start from somewhere over here. So now what I want to do is look at the circuit. I want to try, the only circuit that's going on this board is this circuit. So I'm obviously going to be using the LM386 as the heart of this thing. I don't want a switch on it. I don't need a switch. I just need to make sure that it's current limited. I don't need anything blowing up. So I'm going to assume that if I take the 9 voltage from the same place that the original driver is being taken, it should be okay. It shouldn't draw too much, depending on how they made the original driver. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw the chip right in the middle here. It's a typical 8-pin dip. So what I'm going to do is count 4 holes out of 28. That leaves 24 holes, so I'm going to count 12 holes on either side. Here we have 1 through 8, like a typical 1-pin dip. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fill in our holes. I may make this socket. I don't have a reason to. I may just save the socket. Let's see. It looks like pin 1 is gain, pin 8 is gain. Pin 2 is negative input, pin 3 is positive input, pin 4 is ground, pin 5 is V out, pin 6 is V source, pin 7 is bypass. So we're going to go ahead and kind of correlate that. So we're going to go from pin 1, we want a resistor. And then we want, off of the other side, we want the capacitor. And then underneath, we'll go ahead and mark our chip where it's going to be on the bottom side. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now that we have that, we want to make sure that we write down, and we want to have a rail here, just jumpering these 2 pins here. And that's going to go to either side of these 2 components. Make sure we want those marked. Those are going to still be marked on the bottom too. Okay, looks like we got pin 1 and 8. We got this gain jumper here done. And we'll take pin 6 now. That needs to go to 9 volts with a 0.1 microfarad. So we'll take 6 and we'll go about that far, maybe. I don't. That's arbitrary, so I'll probably be deleting this and going back. And that's going to need 0.1 going to ground. So we can say we'll have a 0.1 microfarad there. And that's going to be going to ground. So we'll go ahead and say that we'll lay a ground rail along the bottom here. So let's go ahead and mark that top and bottom. And our 9 volt is specifically for the chip, so our 9 volt doesn't have to go to anything else. So I have no reason to lay down a positive rail on this thing. And that's just more things to short out, more things to solder. So we'll go ahead and jot that. Capacitor isn't on the bottom, so I don't want it to look like it's on the bottom. Okay, so we'll take that to our pin 6 on both sides. Actually, I'll lay it on the, let's see, should I lay it top or bottom? What does 5 do? Let's see, 5 is output. So I think I'm going to lay our pin 6, I think I'm going to lay that on the bottom. So I'll go ahead and erase it from here, and I'll just leave it here. Okay, so let's go ahead and worry about, let's go to the other side now. Let's worry about pin 2. Pin 2 goes straight to ground, easy enough. And let's see, actually, let's start with pin 4 since that's closest to the ground. Pin 4 also goes to ground, so we'll go ahead and make sure that that's nice and easy, straight to ground. And we know pin 2 goes to ground too, but we want to see what pin 3 does. So pin 3 goes to our wiper. So I think I'm going to go underneath for our pin 2. And that's going to go all the way to ground. Alright, so we have pin 2 jumper here, jumping on over a rail to ground on the bottom. That way on the top we still have our pin 3, plenty of room for our pin 3 to work our potentiometer. And then here we need pin 7. Let's see, what does pin 7 do? That's not right. I'm already making mistakes here. So let's start closest to the ground rail. I think that was a mistake to do that any other way. I'm going to go ahead and erase for pin 2. And let's see about pin 3. Pin 3 is our input. That's also going to go to ground, so I'm going to go ahead and keep 3 up top, go over here, give myself plenty of room for a rail. That'll be our wiper, that'll be our input, and that'll be our ground. Sure, why not? So this will be in. We'll figure out a way to make that in. We have a ground rail over here, so making it positive and negative, it's all using the same common, including the ground. Pin 2 has to go directly to ground. So I'll go ahead and take pin 2 like I had it. Should have just left it that way. Right out to pin 2, jump that on a rail to go to ground. Okay. Pin 2 is going to go straight to that rail, go to ground. So we have pin 1 done, we have pin 2 done, we have pin 3 going to the wiper, going to ground, going in, done. We have pin 4 directly to ground, done. Pin 5. Pin 5 is our output. So I'm going to go ahead and do like I did with the input. Let's see, how many holes did I jump? 1, 2, 3. So we'll go ahead and jump 3 holes here too. That's going to be our output. And that output is going to go to a 220 microfarad. And that 220 is going to go directly to our speaker. Number 7, so 10 microfarad to ground. So we'll go ahead and put our pin 7 microfarad, 10 microfarad capacitor right next to our pin 8, 10 microfarad capacitor for now. It's actually more difficult than you think laying this stuff out. So it looks like I have the whole left side done. Let's see, pin 7 is going to have to go to a 10 microfarad directly to ground. So I think I did good putting that in the same place. And I think from there I can go ahead and take that straight to ground. So we'll take that in a rail. Over that way. So we have pin 7 going to a 10 microfarad, jumping over to the rail. The rail is going up to ground here. Okay, that's done. Pin 6, I still have to get pin 6 by. Let's go ahead and erase pin 5. Pin 6 is going to be our 9 volt. So I think I should take pin 6 and just throw that up here as best as I can. And I'm going to say that's 9 volt. And then that's going to need a capacitor. Maybe that should go right here. Straight to ground. Okay, pin 6. And the rail's going up top. And now I have 2 rows here that I can work with pin 5 because pin 5 is most critical. So with that, I'll go ahead and take 6's rail underneath. Capacitor will be here. And that rail is going to be up top. There we go. I typically like to let the rail stop. I don't like to leave the end of the rail straight and just solder to it. I like to make sure the rail goes back into another hole before it goes into another component. It just makes everything feel cleaner that way to me. I might as well consolidate it. So that's going to the other side of the capacitor, and then I'll move my rail here. There we go. Alright, I think pin 6 is good. Pin 5 is our output, so that's going to be the big kahuna right there. This is going to have to jump a ways down here. We'll go ahead and stop right there. And then from that, it's going to have to go to a resistor and a capacitor. But it also has to go to another capacitor to the speaker. So we'll go ahead and try and jump down from that. We'll go from that to the resistor. We'll go from the resistor to the capacitor. And go from the capacitor to ground. And then the other side, before the resistor and the capacitor, we want to go all the way out here. And that'll be our output to the speaker. I'm going to see if I can get that working. So I actually have one of my resistors I'm going to have to put in series because I have to make up a 1.2K with a 1K and a 200 ohm. I'm going to take a 10 microfarad. I'm just going to kind of set the parts in there where I need them. Pin 8. You want the negative to the pin, like that. That's going to go underneath and jump over under the chip and go to the other side of the resistor. And that resistor, that's the 1.2K, so that's good. That means I can take the resistors that I need in series, and since I have plenty of room, I can just put them where I need them. That's not interfering with anything. I was afraid what pin the series resistors would need to be on. There we go. I do need a negative rail, so I'm going to take a bit of wire here, and I'm going to try and bend out a negative rail. Just stick a little bit of the end in there. Hold it from the underside and feed it through the string. That way I can kind of conserve as much of this wire as possible. There we go. Go ahead and cut that where I need it. I lost my clippers. I don't know where they went. I do have a pair of dikes though. There we go. Fold that out of the way. So now I got my beautiful little negative rail there. There's jumps on either side, so I'm just going to have to make sure wherever I'm coming through the board to the negative rail that I'm putting plenty of solder when I do that. Okay, and pin 4 is just going to be soldered underneath, directly across. I'll gum up a bunch of solder in that hole, make it across the pin, and then where it's underneath the rail, I'll just keep feeding it solder until it sticks to the rail that way. And from that, I need another 10 microfarad. And that's also, let's see, what pin is that? Pin 7. This time the positive is going to go to the pin, so these are going to be changed. Okay, these are a little too close, so that's not going to work. So I'll go ahead and move pin 8 down there, make room. There's plenty of room for pin 8 and pin 1. They just have to jump together across the back of the board. So they're fine where they're at. And that's a 0.1 microfarad. And it looks like that's a ceramic cap, because it looks like it's bidirectional. So I'm actually going to swap these out for some ceramic capacitors. Go ahead and break open the ceramics. Looks like the 0.1s are the first slot here, and I need 2. So with that done, now we can go ahead and put those in place. And I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the 7th hole. And the other side of this capacitor is going to go underneath to the negative rail, up through the negative rail. And the 220 microfarad, let's look where this guy goes. Oh, I forgot it here. Let's see. Go ahead and put that guy right there. Let's say 220. Alright. And we'll count those holes over. Pass the ceramic capacitor. There we go. And the negative is going to go out, so our output will be right here at the edge of the chip. And then our input, I can actually do the same thing, make that kind of a diagonal, so it'll go in here, out here. It'll be powered from up here, and it'll have a common negative rail down here. 0.1 microfarad on pin 5. Actually, a resistor first. So pin 5 is going to jump down to the next row. It's going to jump through a resistor, then through a capacitor, and then directly to ground. So that'll be easy enough. So these are all the components that I need to actually get the circuit working, as far as I can tell on the circuit that I'm following. Hopefully it works with the speaker that I'm going to choose. Hopefully it works with the driver that's in the actual prop. So next I'll just be bending out rails and soldering. I've actually just realized a small change that I'm going to make to this circuit. I've realized that I've wasted space down underneath here. So let's see, what I was thinking was I could go directly down like I did with pin 4, take that to the resistor, take that to the capacitor, and then take that directly to ground. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So we'll go ahead and move the resistor and the capacitor, and that's a 10 ohm and 0.1 microfarad, so 10 and 0.1, and then 5 can just stay on that rail all the way up the top, and then number 7 can either go to this hole over, or actually it can't now because I have this capacitor here, so we'll actually go to the next hole. We'll move 7 over one entire hole, just the output after the capacitor, and then where the rail starts, we'll go ahead and move that as well. Very good. And I could even move this whole 9 volt back one too. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to move this 9 volt I'll go ahead and jump up here, jump over there. Or I don't even need to do that. I'll just jump straight here and use that as a 9 volt. So the way I'll have this, I'll go ahead and take pin 6 out from the bottom here too. Pin 6 is going to jump on a rail all the way to here. That's going to jump on a cap to here. And that I want on a rail directly to ground. Very good. So the far side of the capacitor is going to be taken straight to ground. And then pin 5 here, the output, that has this whole area along the side here to do whatever it wants to do. Okay. That's how that's going to sit. I think I should go ahead and solder this in there. So I'm going to take that out. Turn this over. Grab my helping hand. Give me a hand here. Go ahead and get the ground rail soldered in there. There we go. Accidentally soldered one more hole that I didn't mean to. I hate doing that. There we go. We'll go ahead and let the helping hand hold the whole socket in there. That way get a good hold on it. If you can turn it around, there we go. Okay. Alright. See if we can get this whole 8-pin thing in there without mis-soldering a couple holes. 1, Good so far. 3, 4. You can let go of that now. 5. 6, 7, and 8. Alright. Now let's see. I think at this point I should stop and worry about getting some rails bent out. I'm going to go ahead and clean the iron. At my circuit here, I'm just going to start bending these rails out one at a time. So it looks like number 3, we have a rail and we're jumping over 3 holes. We'll start there. Go ahead and take some of our 22 gauge. Best thing for this, of course, the green lead needle nose. Get them in that flat part of the anvil. I only need a little bit. And flatten against the body there. That makes a perfect little bend there. And I'm jumping over 3 holes. I'll go ahead and pick a spot, template, mark it with your nail. Kick it back just a hair. I don't actually have very long nails right now, so I cannot mark it as best as I normally would. Alright, now let's see how this fits. Drop the long side in there. Hey, it works great. We have 1 rail down. Go ahead and cut the excess off here. So we'll go ahead and get a piece of our rail material, if I can grab it. Try and get that where the bend is best I can. Okay, all of our rails should be bent out. I think at this point I can go ahead and start throwing components in. We'll just start with the biggest one. Well, I'll wait for that because that's all the way over by the speaker. So we'll just start closest to the circuit here. And check my resistors, make sure I got the right ones before I throw them in. Alright. I'll throw my resistors in here in series. There we go. Elevate them just a little bit. There we go. I'll get my helping hand in here and we'll start soldering this stuff in. Alright, get this started. Okay, and I'll kick the other one over here towards the chip. So I need to go to that pin. And now I can cut them into place. Alright, let's see. How do I want to reach this here? I'll flip this around. There we go. Sorry, guy. looking good. And my next component that I want to put in, I'm going to put one of the 10 microfarad capacitors here, and I'm jumping over one hole. So there's going to be a 10 on pin 7, right out of pin 7, and the next two holes up on pin 8, there's going to be the other 10. So I have 2 of the 10 microfarads here. I'm going to go ahead and get those in the board, turn my iron down, make sure the tip's nice and clean. Okay, so it looks like out of pin 7, the positive is near the chip. So out of pin 7, I'll make sure the positive is right up against the chip there. And then on pin 8, the negative is towards the chip. So I'll make sure when I kick that up here, that is the way that is. And I'll go ahead and get those soldered. Alright. And I'm going to go ahead and get my leads straightened away. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the leads from the capacitor to kick them right against the pins on the socket. Just like that. I'll cut those in place right up against the back of these pins like that. Alright, I'll go ahead and get those soldered real quick. Go ahead and get those in there. Go. I want to go ahead and take my 10 ohm and my 0.1 microfarad right out of here. So where do I have the second 0.1? Pin 6 is 0.1 right here. I want to make sure I write that down. Pin 6, that's 0.1. And that's going to the rail underneath here. So, okay, that's good. That's where my second 0.1 microfarad. So I'll go ahead and get this 10 ohm resistor right under pin 5, and then I'll get the 0.1 microfarad capacitor in right after that. And I can even go ahead and get it to the ground rail right now while I'm at it. Alright, let's go right under here. Right under pin 5, like that is how I wanted this. I'll go ahead and elevate it just a little bit, just to help with the heat. There we go. And then I'll take one of my 0.1 microfarads. Make sure the legs are open so I can put it through the holes. That sounded disgusting. And it's a 10 ohm, and then I'll put the microfarad right snug next to it. I'll go ahead and bend the legs of the capacitor out just to get them out of the way. Okay. Go ahead and get that helping hand. Clean my soldering iron again. Always. There we go. Going around here. Solder on the other pin. There we go. Alright. So I want that to go get kicked right up to pin 5. I want the capacitor lead right over to the capacitor, so I'll go ahead and cut the lead off of the resistor on this side. Without cutting the capacitor lead. There you go. And I'll cut both of these to size. First I'll do the capacitor lead. Okay. Don't want to worry about getting these jumps. Okay. Got one more here for now. My next component Up here, pin 6, I want my 0.1 microfarad, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes off of pin 6. Pin 6. Make sure my 0.1 microfarad is ready to go. And I'll go ahead and get that soldered in real quick. Almost running out of components here, so almost to the rails. Alright, here's where I want to start. And other side. There we go. So my final capacitor is our big old 220 microfarad here, and that on my circuit is going to be quite a few holes away. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're jumping 8 holes away. Pin 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Jumping over 8 holes and going to the positive on this capacitor. I'll elevate that a little bit just like I did with all the other components, just to help with heat. When I start soldering this thing in there, it's gonna get hot. Alright. Let that get back up to 700. There we go. A little too much solder. There we go. That's all I really needed. But why not make them even, or somewhat even? Okay. Now I want to start with my rails. I don't need any of the pins on these components that I put in from pin 1 or pin 8. Go ahead and cut those off to size right now. Alright. That hole is a miss solder, but that's okay. It's not jumping anything or hurting anything. Okay, I've got it sitting here with alligator clips, and I've got it hooked up. Sensor should let it go off. Let's see. There we go. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So to be clear, looking at the top of this, pin 3 is going underneath here. That'll be my input, and the variable resistor will be going from ground up and then out to the input. So the input will come in up here, ground will be right here, wiper will go to pin 3, and on the other side we have our positive 9 volt, our output sound and our negative. So we'll be putting 9 volts in, we'll be putting sound in, we'll be putting negative in, and we'll be taking out a sound, and then we'll have a potentiometer able to control the volume on this thing. This is fun. This is fun. I like this little circuit. Since I'm installing this in a prop, I might actually make one myself just to keep around. These are kind of cool. Thanks for watching. Take care.